5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition. Strap in. You're about to listen to the hottest sounds in the mix. In the mix.
Peace. Peace and elevation. Welcome to the Wake Up Project with Brother Mike X podcast. We're doing some new things tonight. I appreciate the different family members who are striving to take me out of the Stone Age, to deal with this technology, Peace. Peace and elevation, sis. So right now, I'm on my Facebook page on the computer in front of me, and I never go on the computer almost. I'm always, when I do social media, I do it through my phone. So this Facebook page in front of me is looking crazy right now, I'm trying to see where the link, yeah, it hasn't popped up yet. Yeah. All right, family. So, and this is the first time I'm doing actually Instagram Live. I shoot a lot of 1-minute clips on Instagram Live, talking about various issues, giving sound bites on various issues that's dealing with our survival, with our empowerment, with our need to learn how to love ourselves so that we can begin to love each other and love the neighborhoods, that we reside in, and love the lives that we have, because a lot of us don't love ourselves. And because we don't love ourselves, it manifests itself in deplorable conditions in our neighborhoods, conditions that we need to be able to positively address and not be dependent upon someone else to address these issues for us. Because as we've seen, if we continue to wait for the issues that's going on in our neighborhoods to be addressed by someone else, things will get worse instead of get better, So it's on us. Damn, I just saw something pop up. Was I supposed to? Yeah, I don't see anything. Maybe. Bear with me for a quick second, family. We got a show tonight that's dedicated to the life and legacy of El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, better known as Brother Minister Malcolm X, who I've talked about a number of times, with you. And we just trying to work some technical. All right, there you go. All right. And so you, okay, all right. Over here? Yeah. Got you. All right. So, brother DJ Cruz is basically holding my hand on the technological aspect, man. Because I really don't know a whole lot about computers. How do you invite somebody in here? Okay. Oh, man. I asked the family to help share this message tonight's show with other people that you may know. Okay? The calling numbers are 718-705-4959 or 914-969-6499. That's 718-705-4959 or 914-969-6499. And what I want to do tonight is I want to try to get in as many calls as I can. And to do that, I have to take advice from, different family members. My son, my son was saying, Dad, I know you want to keep people on the line sometimes and give them, an opportunity to hang out and to share. But what that does is it creates a backlog of other people who are trying to call in and can't get in because I got, the line held up. So if you call in tonight, I definitely want to hear your comments. I want to hear your thoughts, your opinions on this great and wonderful and powerful black man, Brother Malcolm X, whose born day was yesterday, May 19th. And, come in, state your comment or your question. And then I want to give you about 2 minutes, 3 tops. Okay? So let's begin. I dedicate this show to El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, better known as Brother Minister Malcolm X, also known by some as Brother Wali. Brother Wali. He was given this name in his trip through Africa. I believe it may have been a name given to him by a student union that he had spoken to in Africa. Brother Wali. That's Omowale. And what it means is the son who has returned home. Okay? So I dedicate this show to Malcolm, Brother Minister Malcolm X. I dedicate this show to Malcolm's immediate family, who suffered greatly in the wake of his untimely demise, murder, assassination. Malcolm and his queen, Dr. Betty Shabazz, they gave birth to 6 daughters whose names are Atala, Kubila, Ilyasa, Gamila. Gamila is one, someone that I met some years ago, Malcolm's 4th daughter. And she was a friend of mine for a time, and I appreciated the time that I was able to be a friend, at that time, and kind of lost contact some years ago. But I definitely send a strong shout out to Gamila and to all of the sisters. And the last 2 was Malika and Malak. Those was Malcolm's 2 daughters that were born, that Sister Betty Shabazz, Dr. Betty Shabazz, was pregnant at the time of Malcolm's murder, and with twins. And those twins were named Malika and Malak. Why must we continue to honor Malcolm 93 years after his birth and 53 years after his physical death? Because as Ossie Davis, the famous actor, civil rights leader and actor, husband to Sister Ruby Dee, Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee was, what some people look at Jay-Z and Beyonce like now, As Ossie Davis said, Malcolm was our manhood, our living black manhood. Malcolm was our shining black prince. Malcolm was one of the foremost agitators at that time that helped us to move from looking at ourselves as second-class citizens, as slaves, you know what I mean, as N's and B's. Malcolm was one of the agitators that helped to promote Black is Beautiful, that helped to promote black pride and racial, cultural dignity. The Black Power movement that took shape at the end, the second half of the 60s. The first half of the 60s was dominated by, Dr. King, and the sit-ins, and the marches and the protests, begging for, I shouldn't say begging for, I'll say fighting for, civil rights accommodations, the right to sit in the front of the bus, the right to, to go into a business and not have to go to the back door, to buy your food, the ability to sit down and eat your food, in the business, the right to vote. Some of these things, the first half of the 60s was dominated by the sit-ins and the protests, led by people like Dr. King, led by people like Roy Wilkins of the NAACP, led by people like James Farmer of the Congress of Racial Equality, of people like Stokely Carmichael, you know, and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. You know, these are some of the organizations that were thriving at that time that you need to know about and maybe do some homework on. But the second half of the 60s was dominated by what can be called the Black Power movement. You know, why must we continue to talk about Malcolm? Because Malcolm was one of the foremost, you know, advocates and agitators, you know, that sparked the rise in people, black people, learning how to love themselves, you know, and growing out their afros, you know, and James Brown with his song, I'm Black and I'm Proud, you know, Stokely Carmichael moving away from, you know, the sit-ins and the protests and the nonviolent marches, you know, deciding that, you know, what we need right now is Black Power, you know, the Black Panther Party, you know, with Huey Newton and Bobby Seale and them talking about self-defense. All of these people, you know, particularly Huey P. Newton and the Black Panther Party and Stokely Carmichael, a lot of them, they saw Malcolm as their spiritual father, you know. And that's not to take away from, you know, anyone else or take away particularly from, you know, the Nation of Islam, because Malcolm definitely came up through the Nation of Islam and he became their national representative, and he became one of the strongest voices of that time for Black pride, you know, for Black dignity, you know, for we need to be in control of our own destiny. He became one of the most powerful voices for that. And as becoming that powerful voice, he immortalized himself to the point where, you know, this book right here, you know, this book right here that I read, I think I just read it again, like it's either my 9th or my 10th time. You know, I read it last year. I read it every so often. Every other, you know, maybe 2 or 3 years or something like that, I'll reread the autobiography of Malcolm X. The autobiography of Malcolm X, it found me on the corner in the Northeast Bronx back in like the summer of 1991, you know, and at that time, I had no knowledge at all about Black pride, about Black culture, you know, dignity, self-love, and respect. I had no knowledge about Malcolm X, really. I had no knowledge. This was a year before the movie came out, you know. I really had no knowledge about Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam or the Black Panther Party or any of these things. And because I didn't have any knowledge about that crucial component in our history, I was living the life of, you know, basically you could say a savage, you know, someone who had no love and respect for myself, much less love and respect for the neighborhood that I lived in, you know, and the other people who lived in the neighborhood. I definitely had no love or respect for education, you know, and, you know, that book and that man, you know, helped to wake me up to, you know, doing my thing. So there's a call coming in. Let's take this call. Peace and elevation. Please state your name, where you calling from, and let us know what's on your mind.
Peace, good brother. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good. This is Veronica calling out of Chicago. You know, before it just got too late, I just wanted to chime in before I couldn't get a chance to. First and foremost, thank you for even, you know, providing a platform like this. And I hear you talking about Malcolm X, and you know, you asked us to call in if we had any comments or any questions or anything. And I just really want to say that Malcolm, I had a whole misconception of who Malcolm was and what he taught and what he was about. When I was in school, of course, I think a lot of people can probably, I don't know, maybe agree with this, but I thought that he was hateful, and, you know, he, you know, like you said, was an agitator, but was an agitator to bring, you know, conflict. But it wasn't until I really got into, I think, the science of what racism is and what it was about that I began to understand Malcolm and appreciate everything that he with everything that he went through in his life and every conclusion that he came up with. And yesterday, as I revisited his, you know, his clip that was all over social media, I'm like, this man, he truly things way before his, before the end of his time. He saw things that's happening right now that we probably couldn't even fathom. But I just want to say I appreciate his life. I appreciate, everything he has done to uplift us and to teach us what we can do for ourselves. And that's all I want to say, good brother.
Hey, sis,
Peace.
I definitely appreciate you for coming through. I'm going to free up the line, but you could definitely call back in, if you're moved to. And I definitely appreciate you as well, sis.
Peace.
Peace. I see LP Johnson. I see Brother Emmanuel. I see Norwood. I see my brother Dr. James Jones. I see Roxanne. I see Bertina. I see Shayna. You owe me a call. I see Khadijah. I see She, Letitia. I see Brother Isaiah. I see Nefer. I see Jessica. Definitely call in, family. The number again to call in is, again, 718-705-4959 or 914-969-6499. And what we're talking about tonight, we're giving honor to our shining black prince, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, Brother Malcolm X. And we're asking the question, what can/must we do today to take advantage of his sacrifice made on our behalf? Okay? So, what I'm gonna do right now is hold off, give me 15 minutes, all right? I want to show a video at this time. And this video is a video that I made a few years ago in honor of Malcolm. There's a ton, like literally almost a ton of information out there on this great and wonderful black man. I would say one of the most important black men that lived in that last century that we left about 20 years ago. I would say that he was one of the greatest black men that lived, and that stood up for us at that time. And a lot of people today, even still, if you learn about the life of this man and you open up your mind, it will help to shed so much light on why we're so jacked up in this American system. Brother Malcolm went through a lot of the things that we went through. And it helped me to understand, like before I read the autobiography of Malcolm, I thought that black people was just jacked up. We just bad luck. We just backwards. You know how people say things like we're the only race who can't do this, or we're the only race who can't do that. We're the only race that don't support each other. Positive, efforts, in business or whatever it is. I thought that it was something wrong just with us. The reason why our neighborhoods, are so torn up, a lot of times. The way we disrespect one another. The way we're so quick to hurt and kill and maim one another. I thought this was just something that was wrong with us. But when I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, it helped me to understand that there was a system put in place. A system put in place to keep us from having our own, just having our own. Having our own neighborhoods, having our own leadership, having our own businesses, the thing that every other racial ethnic group in these United States is able to claim. Even if they're just getting here, they're able to build and maintain their own neighborhoods and to use the power of their unity to become politically strong so that they can create policies on how their communities are going to be run, to provide safety and security, for the people who live there. They're able to use the power of their unity to create an economic, a local economic base where they control the business relationships in that community. So that as they feed their money into their businesses, they empower their businesses to redistribute a percentage of that money back into the community to help to improve the community, help to strengthen the community. Every other racial ethnic group has been allowed to do that except the Black/African peoples, particularly, you know, the African American branch of Black/African peoples, the sons and daughters of Africa, particularly the African American branch, has not been allowed to build up that type of unity, that social unity that will allow us to become politically strong, economically strong, so that we can take over and bend our neighborhoods to our will. You know, to where we can invest again in our neighborhoods with our money, with our time, with our resources. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that we have to be able to get to. So now let me go to this video right quick. Give me 15 minutes because this is a must-read book list that I put together some years ago. Displaying a lot of the must-read, you know, books on this great man, you know, to give you a more accurate portrait. Books that you can go to the library or to the bookstore or go online now. You can go online, you know, to order these books, and you can learn and hopefully the same impact that this man's life and legacy gave to me, you know, to help me to understand what's going on in our neighborhoods, to help me to learn how to become a strong and empowered, you know, prideful and, you know, individual, you know, to strive to become an activist in my neighborhood. Hopefully that it will allow you to do the same thing so that you can stand up in your neighborhood. And this is what we need right now, more so than any other time. I put up something on Facebook the other day saying that no, Malcolm is not dead. Malcolm is not dead. He's not dead if we choose to remember him and we choose to allow his life and his legacy to positively inspire us to do what we need to do in our own lives, to become more powerful men, powerful fathers and husbands, to become more powerful wives and sisters. You know what I mean? So we can rebuild the family structure the way it's supposed to be, so that we can provide the type of security and shelter and discipline for our children the way we're supposed to be able to. So anyway, I said it a few times. Let's go to the video, brother. And give me 15 minutes. Call in after the video. Peace and blessings. This is Brother Mike X. In honor of my spiritual father, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. This being May 19th, 2015, you know, Brother Malcolm's 90th birthday. I just wanted to take the time to show a few books. And this is just a few, there are more. But I just wanted to give the family an opportunity to see that there are many books talking about the life and times and philosophy and ideology of Brother Malcolm X. Right now, of course, I'm focused on the most famous, you know, the autobiography of Malcolm X, written by Alex Haley. But I have, I don't even know how many I have spread out. I just want to go through them right quick to give you an opportunity to see what they look like and, you know, get the title of the books and the author of the books. And so that you might want to, you know, further your studies on this great, complex, dynamic, you know, black man. So this book right here is called From Civil Rights to Black Liberation, Malcolm X and the Organization of Afro-American Unity. And it was written by a brother named William W. Sales Jr. This is a powerful book because not only does it talk about Brother Malcolm, but it talks about the organization that he was striving to form at the time of his death, you know, and it was said that Malcolm said to his friends and members of the Organization of Afro-American Unity, I don't care what happens to me, but the Organization of Afro-American Unity must survive. And unfortunately, you know, his wishes, you know, at the time of his death, for various reasons, you know, were not fulfilled. So I would definitely say this is a powerful book, because in these days and times we need organization amongst the black man, the black family. And the OAAU is definitely on paper, you know, it had the type of philosophy that sought to bring us together from our most radical groups to our more moderate, you know, groups. So definitely check that one out. This one is Malcolm X as they knew him, you know, and in this book there's a host of people who give their perspectives. Some of them knew Malcolm intimately. Some of them was just impacted by Malcolm, you know, by reading about him or hearing about him. Malcolm X as they knew him by David Gellin. It says with Alex Haley, James Baldwin, Maya Angelou, William Kunstler, James Farmer, Eldridge Cleaver, and others. Malcolm X on Afro-American history. This is a book of speeches, you know, delivered by Brother Malcolm. Malcolm X, The Assassination, you know, by Michael Friedley. You know, this is a book that strives to, you know, take note of and highlight the various complexities that brought about the demise of Brother Malcolm X. And there were different groups that had, you know, their hands on, you know, following Malcolm around the country and documenting what he was doing, and ultimately led to his demise. And this book, you know, it's a good book. You know, I definitely read it. It has important information in it, and you know, check it out if you can. Now, this book right here, Remembering Malcolm, it's a short book. It's not even a big giant book, but this book was written by Brother Benjamin Karim, and Brother Benjamin Karim was the brother who he came out of the Nation of Islam with Malcolm, and he was the brother who introduced Malcolm on February 21st, 1965, the day that Malcolm X was assassinated. And in this book, Benjamin Karim, he gives a lot of information, intimate information of his remembrance of Brother Malcolm in the most intimate of settings, varying from, you know, riding in the car with him and sitting at his dinner table with his family, you know, leaving the Nation of Islam with Malcolm, and, you know, all the way up until that dreadful day in February of 1965. It's definitely a very powerful book, well worth reading. You know, check that one out if you can. This is The Final Speeches, you know, Malcolm X, February 1965. It speaks for itself. You know, it documents, you know, some of Malcolm's most famous speeches, you know, leading up to his death. Definitely worth checking out. You know, it should be noted that reading these books will give you a stronger and more accurate perception of who Malcolm actually was, more than just watching the movie. And that's not to say to take anything away from the movie, because I know some people had a problem with the movie. I had no problem with the movie. You know, of course, a movie is not going to be able to depict everything about, you know, such a complex figure as Brother Malcolm X. I think the movie did its job. You know, it revived the interest, you know, of new generations in Malcolm X. And, you know, I think the movie is definitely well worth watching. It dramatizes Brother Malcolm's life and what he tried to do. Just don't leave it at the movie. You know, take advantage of what I'm showing you right now and do your study. This book is called Malcolm X Talks to Young People. It's another book of speeches that he delivered in the United States and Britain and Africa. You know, so it's definitely worth reading, you know, to hear the man himself, you know, and not someone else's interpretation, even though, you know, that's cool too sometimes. you know, especially if the interpretation is to give you an accurate portrayal, you know, of the subject. This is a famous book, The Death and Life of Malcolm X, by Peter Goldman. Is definitely an exhaustive, you know, critique and comprehensive look at Brother Malcolm's life and his career as a black activist, human rights advocate. You know, so definitely check this book out, you know, if you get a chance to. A lot of these books you can definitely go to your local Barnes and Noble. Some of them may be out of print. You might have to track them down, you know, go on Google or Amazon or, you know, Strand's bookstore here in New York City, you know, but definitely, you have no excuse. You know, I'm striving to make sure that you can get a more intimate knowledge of, you know, our brother. You know, you don't just have to leave it to the movie. This is another book. It's called On the Side of My People, A Religious Life of Malcolm X. It was written by a brother, Louis A. DeCaro Jr. This is another book, A Journey of Strength from Wife to Widow to Heroine. Betty Shabazz, Surviving Malcolm X, by Russell J. Rickford. Powerful book. This documents not only, you know, the sister's marriage and union with Brother Malcolm, but it talks about, you know, how she fared as a single mother, striving to raise 6 children, you know, as the wife of an icon. And, you know, Betty Shabazz went on to become a strong and powerful sister, human being, you know, human rights activist in her own right, you know, and this documents her life story. Now, this book is one of the most powerful books that I have ever read. Martin and Malcolm and America, A Dream or a Nightmare, by Dr. James H. Cone. This book is like a comparison, you know, on the lives and the situations that helped to form, you know, a Dr. King, you know, and how he viewed America, and, you know, a Malcolm X and how he viewed America. You know, Dr. King was raised, with, you know, his family structure was intact. He was able to go to college. He was able to see a lot of the best things that America had to offer, and thus he had more hope that informed his public career. He was more optimistic than Malcolm was because of how he was raised. You know, he hadn't seen the things that Malcolm saw. Malcolm, on the other hand, you know, his father was killed, assassinated for his activities as a member of the Universal Negro Improvement Association under the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. You know, his father was labeled as a troublemaker and killed by the Ku Klux Klan. And, you know, Malcolm's family was subsequently ripped apart. His mother was committed to an asylum, and his family was broken up. And Malcolm went through all types of difficulties as a teenager that led him to prison, and ultimately led him to, you know, becoming Malcolm X, you know, having found himself in prison and becoming a member of the Nation of Islam. But Malcolm, you know, he saw the nightmare of America. And this book definitely is a great comparison of the outlooks that shaped them and their efforts to deal with those outlooks as responsible black men in American society. Is definitely well worth the read. This book might be hard to find, but it's called The Political Legacy of Malcolm X by Oba T. Shaka. This book also might be might be considerably hard to find, but it's definitely well worth reading because it takes it much farther than the other book that I showed you, Malcolm X, The Assassination. This book is called Conspiracies, Unraveling the Assassination of Malcolm X by Baba Zach A. Kondo. And this book is powerful. It definitely explores the different groups, as I was talking about earlier, that had a hand and you know, wanting to see Brother Malcolm gone. I can't say it any way but that. You know, I just got to be totally honest. And there were definitely elements of the government, the CIA. There was elements of, you know, as far as the FBI and the police, you know, the local police bureau in New York, as well as elements of the Nation of Islam that wanted Malcolm, you know, gone, you know, and saw Malcolm's existence as a threat. And this book, you know, helps to shed light, you know, on, you know, the forces that ultimately brought an end to the life of Brother Malcolm X. This book is Malcolm X, The Man in His Times. It was edited by our great brother, Dr. John Henry Clark. You know, John Henry Clark should be familiar to anyone who has any type of real knowledge and concern of the black man's struggle. Dr. John Henry Clark was a scholar, a warrior scholar in his own right. And, you know, he enjoyed a close friendship with Brother Malcolm X. And this book is kind of similar in a way to the other book I showed you, Malcolm X As They Knew Him, with different people who weigh in on, you know, Malcolm X and his life and his times and his impact, you know, on our movement and struggle, you know, for liberation as a black people. And the last one I have to show you today is Malcolm X, By Any Means Necessary. You know, this isn't one of the comprehensive types of autobiographies. This is more for like school-age children, you know, and, you know, middle school. You know, it's kind of like an introduction, you know, to Malcolm and his life. You know what I mean? So, having said that, you know, I'm going to cut this short and I'm going to post this to social media. And I hope this little exploration or exposition of the many books that are out there, and there's many more, you know, I just didn't have the space to really arrange them the way I would have wanted to. But this is good, you know. With this right here, you know, anyone who really cares about our brother Malcolm X and his legacy and desires, you know, to get more information on him so that they might be able to become a leader, an activist in their own right, you know, to use you know, the knowledge and the wisdom and the information, you know, of Malcolm in the present day. This would be a good start, you know, to set you on your path. You know, I know it has definitely strengthened me as a brother, you know, to have had an opportunity to go through, you know, this rich information. So having said that, I say peace and blessings, man. This is Brother Mike X signing off. Peace. Peace, family. Welcome back. I really hope that that you guys would take advantage of some of the information that was presented just now in that video, and take the time to open up your mind about the life that you have, which is powerful. If you will learn how to connect with it in that way, each one of us has an opportunity to be the change that we want to see, as they say, you know, to stand up in our neighborhoods and to fight for the change and not just continue to wait for the change to happen from the outside, you know, by somebody else. They're going to change their minds and they're going to give us schools that educate. Or they're going to change their minds and they're going to teach us trade and business, you know. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening, you know. Driving around New York City, we've been talking about gentrification. And we've been talking about, you know, some of the other racial and ethnic groups coming from having their own neighborhoods or having a connection to their own part of the world, wherever they come from, and then coming and setting up all types of businesses, you know, nails, you know, the mani-pedis, you know, setting up the hair shops, you know, setting up, you know, there's almost as many we call it bodegas in New York City. There's almost, and there are many supermarkets, you know, those corner stores. That's what a bodega is. They have almost as much bodegas on every corner as they have storefront churches now. You know? And I tell you, man, like, a lot of money, those businesses that are being set up in our neighborhood, they're not being set up in our neighborhood because they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart, because they want to make sure that we have something to eat. That's not why it's being done. A lot of these little mini supermarkets or corner stores, there's a lot of money being made in those stores. And one of the things that Malcolm said, he said that at sundown, they take that basket full of money into another part of the town, or another part of the country, or another part of the world. And it's not that, this is not hate. I'm not hating on anyone. You know what I do hate? I hate to see our young people, or our people, period, continue to fall through the cracks, of a society that's destroyed the relationship between black men and black women, to where, there's so many single mother or parent-led households. And it's not even just single mothers, man. A lot of, the households are being run by grandparents because there's no father and there's no mother. More of our children are ending up in the juvenile institutions, foster care and other places. And then when we go through our neighborhoods, like I was saying, it's not just the gentrification, but, y'all tell me if y'all notice this. I see it in Harlem. I see it in Brooklyn. I see it in the Bronx, where you're not just seeing, you're seeing like rows and rows and rows of storefronts with their gates down, like just rows and rows and rows. And the sad thing about it is we've been kept in a position, a lot of us, where instead of us looking at that as an opportunity for us to, pool our money, pool our resources so that we can open up something, more wholesome for the community, instead of it being turned into, a McDonald's or, another drugstore or whatever. There are different things that need to be done in our neighborhoods. But a lot of us are stuck in a position where we're just sitting back. Well, I wonder what they're going to put up in our neighborhood next. Yo, that says something about us, man. Particularly as adults. 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, I was talking about how our young people are losing respect for us, or already lost respect for us as adults. And a lot of us, we're pointing the finger at them, and for them losing the, respect for us. But we need to look in the mirror at what we're not doing. We're not providing our young people with the type of community that offers them opportunity, room for growth, safety. We're not doing that. We're sitting back, I don't know what we're waiting for. But we're not taking the type of responsibility over our lives that we need to be taking. In living lives of empowerment, being creative, being imaginative, seeking to go into business to provide products and services of our own for our neighborhoods, to where we can, close the circuit, they've estimated that, and I don't have the particular statistics in front of me, but that if you go to the Jewish neighborhood, it talks about how the dollar flips itself, you know, like 17 to 18 to 20 times. You know, you spend your money in the barber shop that's owned by somebody who lives there. And that money from the barber shop, it goes into the local bank, you know, or it goes into the local supermarket. And in the local supermarket, that money flips again and it goes into the hardware store. Or, you know, but in our community, it talked about that money is gone. As soon as it goes in your pocket, it's already gone. And sometimes we joke about it, but it's really sad. You know, those of us who are working, when we get our paychecks, sometimes we say, yo, man, this money's already spent. Like, we got to do better. So anyway, yeah, I've been seeing these storefronts, these local storefronts, and they're just sitting there. And we're just sitting there. And we don't have a plan on what to do with those potential businesses or schools or mentoring programs or whatever, you know, needs to be put there. We got to do better. The number to call in, family, is 718-705-4959 or 914-969-6499. And once again, this is the weekend of the 93rd anniversary of the birth of Malcolm X. It's the 53rd. Well, it's not the anniversary. You know, Malcolm has been gone from us for 53 years at this point. Let's go to the phones. Peace. Peace and elevation. Please state your name, where you're calling from, and let me know what's on your mind. Peace.
Peace, King.
Peace, peace. Who's calling, please?
This is LP Johnson.
Hey, how you doing, sis?
Doing very well this evening.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. What's on your mind?
I wanted to touch on two things. One, what the previous young lady said.
Mm-hmm.
About us learning, well, I'm from Generation X, and I came up in the 70s in the height of the integration movement, you know, when we thought we had made it because they let us go to their school.
Mm-hmm.
And these things are taught. You know what I'm saying? These things are, the systematic teaching is so far ingrained into the way we think about ourselves and the way we think about success and the way we think about making it and the way we look at ourselves and look at each other.
Mm-hmm.
Leads into my next point about education being the one thing that we can take control of.
Mm-hmm.
Our children are learning. And we don't need anybody's permission for it. We don't need anybody's, you know, approval. I heard somebody suggest just this past week that we start with like something like a Saturday school or a weekend school where we dedicate that time to educating our children about our history and ourselves and our struggle and our movement and looking forward into the future of how they can grow up and change and take the mantle and bring things into alignment with where they're supposed to be. And I'm firmly convinced, and I've been an educator for almost 30 years now, I'm firmly convinced that we have to break the cycle of the dumbing down that America has done by putting our children in a certain kind of situation where they're made to feel less than what they are.
That's right. That's right. I agree with you. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, family. And you know, I appreciate you calling in. You know, most definitely. And it's funny, you know, for the most part, I think we're on maybe our 12th show. You know, we started the Wake Up Project as a weekly podcast every Sunday night back on March 4th. And all of the people who have called in, for the most part, are friends that I have on social media. Almost none except for brother. And also shout out to Sister Pamela. We hope, you know, the Sister Pamela will be back with us soon. We send our love to Sister Ella. And Brother Tamik that was here last week. And he's taking care of some business. But besides them, every other call has been someone that I know through social media, for the most part. And a lot of the people that that are calling in are not people that I've, spent time talking with yet. And I'm saying all that to put a little bit of spotlight and pressure on some of the people that I know, that I've spent hours with on the phone, that see their brother sitting up here out front, risking failure, risking humiliation, risking being targeted, because I'm trying to shine a spotlight on what's holding us down and holding us back. And we can see looking in our history a lot of times that they don't want us to wake up. So when you position yourself as someone trying to wake us up, that can be a dangerous situation sometimes.
No doubt.
But anyway, having said that, sis, I definitely appreciate you. I want to try to make sure that the line is clear. Is there anything that you want to say before you hang up the phone?
I just appreciate what you're doing. Just getting the word out and bringing knowledge and educating about the way things are and the way things might be and how we might get there.
No doubt.
You're doing a good work, brother.
Thank you, sis. Thank you. And thank you for doing what you're doing. I want to talk with you soon, hopefully. I'll hit you in your inbox or something. Maybe we can have a dialogue or, a think session, think tank,
Do that.
All
Definitely.
right. All right. And call back in if you feel like, you want to call back in, you're welcome to do that as well.
All right.
All right, sis. Thank you so much.
Peace.
Peace, man. All right. So, what are some of the major ideas that Malcolm represented? When Malcolm was in the Nation of Islam as the national representative, as the #1 spokesperson of that movement, after, the head of the movement, Elijah Muhammad, he represented the program of the Nation of Islam calling for separation. That we need, that movement represented one of the major things that it advocated is we needed to separate ourselves from American society. That we wasn't getting any justice in the society, socially, politically, economically. We were being used and abused. And we needed to separate. And they advocated, they called for many times, that the government should give a state or two that would be turned within the United States, that would be turned into a territory run and controlled by black people so that we can set up our own government, so to speak. And that never happened. When he left the nation, his main idea that he talked about is something called black nationalism. And it wasn't calling for the government to give us, a state or two, and to give us the resources that we needed to set up a government of our own within the United States. But as articulated by Malcolm X, black nationalism meant that we should be in control of everything in our neighborhoods. Everything in our neighborhoods we should be in control of. Kind of like what we see in Chinatown. We see the Chinese in Chinatown. They have carved out, and there's Chinatowns all across this country. You know, not just the most famous, you know, in New York City, the most famous out in California, but there's Chinatowns all across this country where Chinese people are operating under a belief system of Chinese nationalism, where they are using the power of their unity to control the politics of their community, to control the economics of their community. We see it. We see Little Italies all across this nation in every major city. We see the Jewish communities that use the power of their unity, again, to dominate the politics, to dominate the economics. So Malcolm advocated, you know, at that point in time, he advocated that we needed to learn how to come together, to educate ourselves, to love ourselves, to build the type of cohesiveness or that would allow us to organize our money, organize our votes, and just organize our numbers. You know, just to share numbers, you know, because that's where your political and economic power comes from. It comes from organized people sticking together, forming what could be called block power, you know, block, BLOC, a group of people united for a common interest. This is what he advocated. And right now, I would say that we still need that type of mindset and practice in our neighborhoods, you know? And I would say particularly the so-called African American branch of that needs to learn how to catch up with some of the other branches of the family who are practicing that. What are you talking about, Brother Mike? I'm talking about, we see some of our Haitian brothers who haven't had to deal with the cultural, psychological, spiritual attacks and damage that has been leveled at the so-called African American. We see some of our Jamaican brothers, some of our West Indian, you know, brothers and sisters who have come from Jamaica or come from Haiti or come from different places, and they come with a cultural outlook that allows them to come into the neighborhood. I'll take the call. Peace and elevation. Can you please turn down whatever you're watching the show on so we don't get the feedback?
Yeah, we turned it down.
Oh, is that somebody in the car? All right, anyway.
Hey, it's Jessica. I'm sorry about that, bro.
It's all good. Peace, sis.
Hey, so listen, so me and my god brother, we in the car. He just been working on my car. But we in the car, and we were talking about listening to you about, like, black nationalism.
Yes.
And when you had spoke about Chinatown, my brother, he said something really good. He said that, you know, like, all the other ethnicity groups and stuff like that, they have something that they're identified with, you know? So he was like, for instance, if you go into, like, the Mexican area, they have, like, they're known for their tacos or, you know, like, their food or whatever. Chinatown, they have, like, an identified thing that, you know, people go to them for. But when it comes to us as a people, like, what are we known for? Like, what are we identified? What identifies us? Like, if someone says, okay, I want to support this particular group of people, what is it that they'll be supporting? You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's something that was really key. And then something else he said was like, you know, how us as a people, like, you know, we say we African Americans, some say black, you know, we have different, you know, things that we go by. But if, like, how do we identify ourselves? You know what I'm saying? Like, because, you know, we say we African Americans, you know, Africans say that they don't really, what you say? They don't identify with us. You know, like it's a separate thing. So what can we do, you know, as a people to where we're known, like we're identified for this particular thing or for these particular resources?
Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah. So, I mean, you know, but you know what, though? But on the flip side, this is something very, very important to me because I grew up in this, in church. And one thing I can say is that the church has to step up more in the black community. And I'm serious about that because you have so many people that dedicate their lives, their finances, their time, everything to the church. And there's not many churches in the community that's really giving back like a substantial, you know, in substantial amounts to the people. You know, people come there, they believe in that they give their last, that this is going to happen for them, and they turn around, they're still in debt, they're still sick, you know, they're still struggling with these issues. Like, the church needs, it's a business, I get it, but it has to be something that's more profoundly impacting the people's lives. Because it doesn't make any sense that you go, I know in Chicago, almost on every other block is a church, but we still have all these killings, we still have such, you know, poverty in the area. Like, the church needs to step up, period, and not just be about manipulating and, you know, taking advantage and, you know, controlling the people and the masses and, you know, teaching about this and that, but there has to be change that comes forth, you know, in the people's lives as a whole. They need to get on board with, you know, the community and, you know, in more programs. And I know it's churches that's out here doing it, but it's not enough. So, I mean, that's my spiel on it right now. I'm sure more conversation to come up. Me and my brother keep talking. Hopefully he'll call in one day and you know, share his thoughts on some stuff, too.
Alrighty. I thank you for that, sis. I thank you, and I'm going to strive to address those two topics that you brought up. And please definitely call back in if you know, feel the need to or feel the energy to do so.
Okay, I will, bro.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Peace.
Bye.
So the sister Jessica asked two questions, and it kind of connects with what I was just talking about. I mean, what have we done specifically? I mean, we've done everything. We've done everything. You know, I don't know if we've ever seen some of the inventions, the lists of inventions that has been robbed from us. We are the most creative, imaginative people on this earth. But because a knowledge of ourselves, a love of ourselves has been stripped of us. Everybody else comes in and they monetize what we do. Hip hop, for instance. Hip hop is $1 trillion industry. And what's so sad is, again, like sister was talking about, there are industries that other people dominate. Specialties that they have claimed as their own. And because they've claimed these industries and they run these industries as their own, they're able to provide themselves and their progeny with opportunity, you know, to build businesses, to grow an empire. You know, we're going to start the family business. And we're going to, as you're coming up, we're going to train you in how to run the family business, because the family business is for you and for your children and your children's children. But we have been stopped time and time again from being able to do the same thing in our neighborhoods. to where when we have children, our children got to start out from the same level that we started out when we was born. And we got to stop participating in that. We got to get to the point where we begin to build a legacy of our own, socially, economically. So to answer that question, what is it that we specialize in? I mean, it's not just sports. It's not just entertainment. Even though they would have us think that, it's more than that. But we've been caught up in a cycle of, a false belief. The ones of us who are trying to improve ourselves educationally, go to school so you can get an education, so you can get a good job. Get a good job, not start your own business, not create your own product or service. They're educated to be empire, driven, to grow their own. I'm going to be the boss of the corporation. I'm going to be the boss of the business. We're driven, we're miseducated a lot of times to just be seeking a job. And then on top of that, we buy into the trick of you got to go to college. One of the young brothers, Brother Ray, was talking about that a couple of weeks ago. You got to go to college. You got to take this loan out to get this degree. And then you get the degree and you find out that they're not hiring you. They're not going to hire you for that degree. And because you don't have the type of historical understanding of how the game is being run, you never seek to think that the same knowledge that I fought so hard to get, that I was seeking to use in their corporation, maybe I should focus on learning how to build my own corporation. Start from scratch and build it brick by brick, layer by layer. Strive to build a relationship with the people in the communities that, that I come from. Build up a relationship where we begin to put our money into our own businesses that we're running. So that, again, the answer, there's too many things to name what it is that we specialize in. The main thing that's stopping us from being able to, to create the businesses, the products, the services, is that we don't love ourselves. We don't believe in ourselves. A lot of us are participating in a cycle of self-doubt and fear and ignorance and hatred and non-belief. This again is why so many of us, Sister LP was talking about the integrationist movement, where a lot of us, at that time, a lot of us thought that, now we got an opportunity to integrate in and go to the same schools that white people have and live in their neighborhoods. And that was the answer to our problems. The problem with that is it signifies a huge disbelief in your own self-worth, a huge disbelief in your creativity, your humanity, your godliness, so to speak. That's the problem with that. We talked about a couple of weeks ago that when we stick ourselves in this endless thing of protesting for better treatment from other racial ethnic groups, that, we're waiting for them to give us jobs. We're waiting for them to give us housing. We're waiting for them to give us clothing. That means that you don't believe in yourself. That keeps you locked in a pattern where the people who are clothing you, the people who are feeding you and sheltering you, they will never respect you. When we ask now, how come we're not getting the type of justice that we deserve? Even though we got the cameras, we could see, you know, the murder, we could see the brutality, and we got them on camera. I know we're going to win this case. The reason why we're not winning those cases is because you're not looked upon as a human being, deserving of respect, deserving of justice. You're not doing the things for yourself that other people are doing for themselves. And yes, there's a reason for it. I know that there's a reason for it because we've been separated from our history, from our culture. You know, Malcolm said history is a people's memory. Without it, they are demoted to the level of the lower animals. We talked about that last week. You know, with all of those commercials, man, save the dogs and save the cats, and they can't save themselves because they don't have the capacity to rise up into their higher consciousness. Well, that's the same thing that has been done to Black/African people, particularly those who grew up and who were raised in America, who fall under the banner of so-called African Americans. We don't know our history. We don't know our culture. So we're trapped in our flesh-based weaknesses and addictions. So the highest aspiration that some of us have is to get high, to get drunk, to party, to have sex. You know, all of these things are pleasure-seeking activities that are rooted in the flesh. But as far as the higher faculties of your intellect, of your mind, of your spiritual connection to the Most High, those are the higher faculties that we've been cut off from. Because we've been taught to believe that to be educated is to be white. You know, to read and study is to be, you know, is to be trying to do something other than return to your full capacity of humanity and godliness. So that's what's stopping us from being able to come up with some type of specialty that we're going to corner the market on. We don't believe that we have it within us to have a specialty. You know, to have a business or a product or a service. And then not only that, when some of us do strive to create a product or a service, a business, because of self-hatred, a lot of the times our people won't support that individual that's opened up a business because of that self-hatred. A couple of weeks ago, we read the Willie Lynch letter. And in the Willie Lynch letter, some people say it's real, some people say it's not. But I still say the Willie Lynch letter shed so much light on the chaos, confusion, and division that's going on, particularly within the United States. And how some of our brothers who come from, and this isn't a blanket indictment, family, because I know that there are conscious, you know, family members from the Jamaican island, that they're West Indians who are not caught up in, you know, looking down their noses at the African American. But there are a lot of them who have bought into the hype of the smear campaign through the education, the so-called educational system, through the movies, through the music. The slander campaign that has portrayed the so-called African American as nothing but a beast, a savage that you got to be afraid of. That's a danger to you and yours. So that when they're shot down in the street, because of that slander campaign, that smear campaign, you like, yo, man, hey, I'm glad you got rid of him or them. They ain't nothing but beasts and thugs and criminals and animals anyway. And some of the family looks upon us like that. But before that call from Sister Jessica, I was talking about in our community, not only do you got the Chinese who've come in with their Chinese food stores and their mani and petty shops and their weave and hair product shops, and they're sucking a whole lot of money out of the black community. And you have a growing encroachment of, I'm not particularly sure what they are. A lot of times in the hood, we call them Arabs, who have opened up all of these, again, like I was saying earlier, these mini supermarkets or these bodegas, these corner markets that sell things like Heroes, you know, the Hero sandwiches, and they sell cigarettes, and they sell paraphernalia for, you know, smoking weed, you know, and the hookers and all of this type of stuff. And a lot of these places have become dominated by Middle Easterners, for lack of having a better name to call them. And they're sucking a whole lot of money out of the community. And then you have some of the family. Because for me, I look at all of us as family. You know, I have a more broader view. I'm not one of those types of people who doesn't have respect for the Jamaican branch of the family, or the West Indian branch, or the Haitian branch, or, you know, Africans from the mother continent, or some of our Afro-Latino brothers and sisters from some of the islands that were created through Spanish conquest. I got more respect for, you know, because I have a greater knowledge. And yes, some of them come over here and they look down on the so-called African American. How come you haven't opened up a business? How come y'all are so caught up? That's because a lot of them don't have the knowledge of what was done, particularly here in America. And how we've been kept in a state of being blind, you know, being unconscious. Every time we have a movement that rises up, a leader and a movement that leader represents, a lot of times that leader is attacked, that movement is destroyed. Because the main thing that's wanted a lot of times is to keep the people asleep. There's an awesome documentary, I think it's called Bastards of the Party. And it was talking about the formation of the Bloods and the Crips. And in that documentary, it talks about how those groups rose up as a response to the elimination of the Dr. Kings, to the elimination of the Malcolm X's. But they eliminated the legitimate leader. They're not afraid of the gang, as long as that gang doesn't become political, conscious, awoke. As long as that gang is, you know, focused on, you know, weed and drugs and guns and all of that, they're not afraid of that. Because they got something for that. But the main thing they didn't want to happen is they didn't want us to wake up to the message of a Malcolm, of an Elijah Muhammad, of a Marcus Garvey. That's the main thing that they wanted to stop us from being able to do. They wanted to keep us asleep. They wanted to keep a situation where I was born in 69. And I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. And I knew nothing about black pride and, you know, and black is beautiful. I didn't know nothing about Nation of Islam or the Black Panther Party. I didn't know nothing about any of that stuff. Because that type of information was kept out of circulation amongst us, because they didn't want us to follow a Malcolm X. They didn't want us to follow, you know, these groups that were striving to set up, help us to take ownership of our lives and take ownership of our communities. So that was the first thing, you know, that sister brought up. You know, what is it that we own? First off, the major thing that we have to own in order for us to be able to take advantage of our creativity and our imagination again is we got to regain ownership of our own minds, our own thought processes. We got to regain our, you know, a healthy self-concept to believe once again that we are human beings that deserve what everybody else is taking for granted. We deserve more than to see our children criminalized before our very eyes, than to see our children addicted on materialism, and then later on drugs and alcohol and other substances. We've been put in a position where we're too afraid to live and too afraid to die. Too afraid to live and too afraid to die. And we got to come up out of that. And then sister talked about the church. When you go through some of these communities, I remember me and a good brother of mine's, Brother Ken, and we started a group called the Open Mind Association in Edenwald some years ago. And we also had a cable show through public access. It was called We Can Get Along TV. And we would shoot a lot of shows kind of along the same theme as the Wake Up Project podcast, talking about these issues. And I remember one time in our neighborhood, we surveyed an area maybe 2 miles by 2 miles. And we went around counting the churches in that area, 2 miles by 2 miles. And we counted like over 100 churches in that area, 2 miles by 2 miles. On some blocks, there was like 4 or 5 churches on the same block. I do have a problem with today's church. I don't have a problem necessarily with the religion. Let me say this better, because there's a difference between religion and spirituality. I don't have a problem with the belief system if it is used to help us to spiritually reconnect our souls to the Most High, the eternal spirit of truth that some call God, the Creator, you know. And I do believe, and I know that some of these belief systems, whether it's Islam or whether it's so-called Christianity, if it's practiced as a religion, then there's no power there. A religion is based upon symbolism and rituals. Symbolism and rituals. So if I don't believe in myself as a human being, and I don't believe that I have a direct connection with God, the Most High, and I believe that if I just suffer as peacefully as possible, you know, and mind my manners and try not to cause any trouble, and I just go to church on Sunday and I listen to I sing a couple of songs, I might eat the cracker and the grape juice, symbolizing, you know, the body and the blood. That I'm saved, and then I go back to my community with no plan on how to organize myself with my neighbors, because there's strength in numbers, so that we can begin to, like I was saying earlier, become politically empowered, to become economically empowered through the coming together of our numbers. You can go to church for 30, 40 years, and it won't change your life, and it won't change your community one bit, if that's the type of church that you're participating in. But if your church is striving to help you to learn how to let go of living your life by sight, and live, but in favor of living your life by the faith, that number one, you are a child of the Most High, that your life is a gift, and you deserve to love yourself and to treat your life as the wonderful gift that it is, and to use your life as a vessel of hope, of faith, that I can transform not only my life, but I can overflow that belief into my family, into my neighborhood. That type of church that's helping you to live your life through the device of spiritual transformation is striving to become an oasis in the midst of a chaotic community. And it's not just talking about the hereafter while you suffer in the here and now. No, it's striving to help you to learn how to transform your life and transform your community in the here and now, so that you can bring justice to your community in the here and now. Those are the type of churches, man, that was at the forefront of the sit-in movements and the protests back in the days. The church back in the days, they was the ones who stood up to lynching. Those was our power bases. But you know what? Those who are against our rise, they came up with these initiatives, faith-based initiatives. I'm going to give you a certain amount of money to buy your silence, to disconnect you from striving to be about spiritual transformation in the here and now. That's kind of what sis was talking about. But I'll tell you this. The real temple of God is this body that you're living in. That's the real temple. And your spirit, your soul that animates this body, that's your true connection to the Most High. And if you begin to meditate on that and you begin to build, belief in your creative power, that you can give birth to a new reality, starting with enlightening yourself, knowing that thoughts become things. This chair that I'm sitting in was a thought at one point in time. And then somebody believed that, I can come up with something that can make it, a little bit more comfortable for somebody. And this chair became a thing. We have to begin to get away from believing that there's nothing that we can do about the situations that we find ourselves in. You don't have to go to church. Now, it's crazy. I feel like I'm in between a rock and a hard place. I feel like there's so many of the family, my pro-black family, that I see day after day after day, man, harassing and haranguing the members of the family who are Christians, who are Muslims. And then that's the rock. And the hard place is, I just said that you don't have to go to church. And there's a great number of people who might be in the church right now like, oh, man, you messed up now, Brother Mike. What you mean you don't got to go to church? The relationship that you want to build, man, with the author of your existence is not connected to any building. It's not connected to any particular day. It's connected again to you striving to vibrate on a higher intellectual, emotional, spiritual level. You are a little God if you choose to live your life as such. From that book that a lot of people who claim to be Christians, in Psalms 82 verse 6, it says, have not you heard it said that ye are all gods, children of the Most High God? I'm going a little deep on that, man. I want to pull us back right now, man. I want to pull us back right now. The number to call in is 718-705-4959 or 914-969-6499. So yeah, Brother Malcolm, that's where I was at. So we see members of the Jamaican branch of the family. They've come in and they've carved out a lot of times like what could be considered little Jamaica. You know what I mean? In different parts of the city. The problem is that we still haven't figured out how to defeat and destroy the influence of the Willie Lynch, the ghost of Willie Lynch. And the propaganda that is fed through the schools, through the movies, through the music, that has taken on a life of its own, of disrespect being shown back and forth. From them to us and from us to them. Has kept us from building upon and seeing that, you know, the Jamaican, and I'm not trying to target Jamaican people or so-called West Indian people. I'm not trying to do that. But what I'm saying is that we've seen with some of the family who've come from outside of the country and who come here with a healthy cultural concept of pride, of dignity, of discipline. And that has allowed them to build, you know, to use that, the power of their unity and their self-belief to create economic viability for themselves, businesses, a business corridor that they patronize with great pride. I think that's a great thing. It would be nice if we can begin to take advantage of seeing that displayed and begin to do that as well, coming from the so-called African American experience. Instead of believing that the only thing is, you know, that you can do economically is football, basketball, sing, dance, rap, or you got to get into the illegal drug trade or, you know, the drug trade or some of these other things. Anything other than that, and those things coming from a hood mentality, that's black, that's being black, you know. Submitting to that has become synonymous with being black, you know. Playing football, playing basketball, singing, dancing, or engaging in, you know, drug selling, drug using. As we've been knocked down History is a people's memory. Without it, they are demoted to the level of the lower animals, as Malcolm said. And as we've taken on the burden of living our lives through our flesh-based addictions and passions, that's the best that we've been able to come up with a lot of times. It's basketball, football, boxing, maybe, singing, dancing, or succumbing to the siren call of our addictions. So let's talk about that for a second right now. Why is addiction so strong a lot of times in the black and brown or black/African neighborhoods, particularly here in America? Why is the siren call of addiction so strong? I would say because nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to see themselves not be able to provide as a father, as a husband, as a man. Nobody wants to walk around and feel like they don't stack up. The pain that is elicited through that belief system. Nobody could, we talk about mental health and how it seemed like a lot of our people is going crazy. They're going crazy because of this unjust system, this unfair system that is not allowing them to rise up in the full capacity of their creativity and imagination as human beings, as children of the Most High. So this is why so many people, you got the churches, you got the bodegas, and what else? What else is on almost any corner? The liquor stores. The liquor stores and the weed spots. If I didn't believe that God is truth, and that as I seek truth and I apply truth to my mind, to my emotions, to my body, that I can begin to transform my life, I would be going to the local liquor spot myself. I would be trying to narcotize. I don't want to be awake. Who wants to be awake? As jacked up as the black community is, as unloving, uncaring as the black community has become, who wants to be awake through that? So this is why the addictions are so strong in our community, because people want to put themselves to sleep instead of have to deal with that reality, thinking that they can do nothing about their existence. This is why it's so important, man, that we got to break our contract with comfortable suffering and thinking that there's nothing that we can do to improve our lives as individuals and as a collective. We have to build a new relationship with the truth. And we have to be more responsible, man, on the decisions that we're making, the stances that we're taking. We can't continue to push this problem onto our children and our children's children. If there's going to be any real change in our neighborhoods, man, it got to start with the adults. It got to start with the adults, man. As you know better, you're supposed to strive to do better. What are some of the other ideas that Malcolm represented? Black love does not equate to white hate. Black love does not equate to black hate. Now, I know for some of the members of the family, some of the ones that's probably, muttering under their breath or talking about Brother Mike, for some of the stances that I'm taking and what I'm talking about. I know for some of the members of the family, black love is directly connected to white hate or hate for the system. And as I talked about a couple of weeks ago, I was there at one point. I was living my life as a bitter, angry, malcontent brother, trying to bring change to my community through anger, through bitterness, through judgment and ridicule, through anger at what had been done by the system and what is being done by the system. Yeah, I was angry. And even now, I'm not, every now and then, yeah, that anger strives to reassert itself, man, as I see more and more injustice being heaped upon us. But I know that energy flows where your attention goes. I know that what you're for is more powerful than what you are against. And I know that until we begin to claim what we are for, we will be subject, as much as we don't want to admit it, we will be subject to the system as it is if we stay stuck in bitter, angry reaction to the system instead of proactive efforts on our own part to heal ourselves, to learn how to practice love within our lives again as individuals. So that as we begin to grow and wake up the ability to be at peace, to see life as the wonderful thing that it is and can be when you're aware and you're connected to your higher faculties of humanity and your godliness as a child of the Most High. Knowing that you have power to bring health and vitality back into your life. To stop living life is a bee and then you die. Oh, you gotta die from something. To break your relationship with your comfort eating, with the smoking of the cigarettes, man, that's killing us. With the other illicit drugs and alcoholism, man, shriveling up our liver. Eating chemical-based, sugar-saturated foods, man. Destroying our circulatory systems, man. Killing off our kidneys, opening us up to diabetes and all of the other things that we're doing, thinking that that's life. That's not life. I sit in front of you not as someone who has overcome all of those things. I sit before you as someone who, knowing better, is striving to do better. And I'm hoping that I can overflow my love, my compassion, my concern to other members of the family, man, so that you can get into a dynamic relationship, partnership with me and others who are waking up and coming to learn how to love ourselves, so that we can begin to challenge ourselves to do better by ourselves. That's what this is about, man. We got 15 minutes. I'd love to hear from anyone of the family right now. The number is 718-705-4959 or 914-969-6499. So yeah, black love does not equate to white hate. At least it shouldn't. Black love is focusing on what you are for. I'm for greater health in the black community. I'm for an awakening, a conscious awakening in the black community, so that we can begin to make peace with truth, with knowledge, with wisdom, with understanding, so that we can reawaken our ability to be creative, to be transformative. This is what Malcolm X represented, truly. You see what happened, man, is they killed off Malcolm, they killed off Martin, they went to war on the Black Panthers, and they replaced it with the 1970s version of gangster rap and what gangster rap did to hip hop. Hip hop saved my life at one point because hip hop had become decidedly black conscious or pro-black. And it found me and my generation, a lot of us on the corner, turning up 40 bottles, man, and smoking weed and cigarettes. And it taught me, it introduced me to people like Malcolm, people like Dr. King, and people like Elijah Muhammad and Huey P. Newton and Sojourner Truth and Marcus Garvey. When I found out about that we had a rich legacy of empowerment, of love, of truth, I got addicted to seeking truth and knowledge, man. That addiction of being a student. This is Message to the Black Man by Elijah Muhammad. This is the autobiography of Malcolm X. Some people would say, yo, you contradicting yourself, brother Mike. How you gonna be reading the autobiography of Malcolm and you gonna be reading Message to the Black Man? Because I have a power to make peace between the greatness that each perspective offered and still offers. I don't have to limit myself and just be pro Malcolm. I don't have to limit myself and just be pro Elijah. I have the power to take what's best in Malcolm's philosophy and take what's best in Elijah Muhammad's philosophy and combine the two and create common ground. This is how we can begin to make peace where once there might have been strife. I don't have to be anti-Christian or anti-Muslim or anti-Buddhist or whatever. I can, through my power of discernment, I can read and study and sample the information, the literature from all of those different seemingly opposing viewpoints because I'm looking for the truth in those seemingly opposing viewpoints. I'm looking for and the truth always complements other truth. It's only when you have settled for limiting yourself and disconnecting yourself from other members of the family that you got to go to war over your differences. One of my hashtags is Minister for Healing and Reconciliation. One of the hashtags that I use is Minister for Healing and Reconciliation. And that's what I consider myself. I'm striving to reconcile the differences, the strife between so-called opposing viewpoints amongst the family. I'm not playing party to none of that. We focus more on our differences. If we're focusing more on our differences, hell no, we're not going to be able to come together. But if we can begin to focus on our common interests, we can get past those differences to create a new and vibrant community. This is one of the things that I saw in the blockbuster film, The Black Panther, that I made reference to a couple of weeks ago. One of the things that I liked the most was when I saw the tribes. And there was tribalism in the fabled land of Wakanda. But those tribes had found a way to unite through their vested interest in wanting to see a strong Wakanda. And I'm wondering if we can find a way to do the same thing. So I'm not asking you to drop whatever cultural, spiritual system that has allowed you to survive in this chaos called America. I'm not telling you to drop your flag, so to speak, to drop your belief system, so to speak. I'm not asking you to drop your cultural manifestation of being a Jamaican or being Haitian or being West Indian or being, you know, of the various Afro-Latin groups out there. Be, you know, whatever it is that makes you strong. I understand what was done to us. I know we was divided and conquered. And I know that through our division and being conquered, that it forced us to grab on to things that might not necessarily have been our first choice. But whatever it was that has helped you, then you hold on to that, man. What am I speaking to you tonight in? I'm speaking to you in English, right? I don't know nothing about any African dialect. The only thing that I know at this particular point in time is English. Because this is some of the crazy thinking or thought process of, you know, that I, you know, narrow-minded, bigoted thought process that I hear sometimes from other members of the so-called conscious community. Yo, what was you before you was a Christian? That's what you need to, you know, you need to do. What was you before you was a Muslim? I might have got under somebody's skin and now they want to have it out with Brother Mike. Let's see. Peace. Peace and elevation. Who's calling? And what is it that you want to share tonight? And please turn down the whatever you listening to the show, please turn it down so we won't deal with the feedback.
Hello?
Oh.
Hello?
Hey, hello. I know that voice.
Yeah, this is your mama.
Ah.
Okay, love your program.
All right.
I heard something on Open Line this morning that really ticked me off. I was trying to send a post, but it was too long. Mm-hmm. I heard today that a lot of people still think that our vote don't mean nothing. Okay, and I don't know. I say for all those Bernie or bust people, we are pretty busted. For Hillary haters, you know, I don't think we could do worse than what we're doing. We need to know our history. After Reconstruction, there were black people who were Republicans in city governments. There was a race riot in Wilmington, North Carolina. I don't have the date right now, but the blacks in the city government, the whites went in there, and these people were murdered to take them out of office. In Sanford, Florida, or Cooley, Florida, a black landowner who was rich enough to pay the poll tax, smart enough to read, was lynched because he voted. So for all those people who talk about your vote don't mean nothing, I don't understand why are they working so hard to keep you from voting. It's gotten so bad in government that the Constitution, if the Republicans continue on track, they will have enough state legislators, city and federal, to rewrite the Constitution any way they want. About 20 years ago, the alarm was sounded about the Voting Rights Act and what we need to do to preserve it. We sat down and we slept, and the Supreme Court came in a couple of years ago and said that racism was over and the act did not need to be enforced. So I love you, baby. Keep on keeping on, and we'll talk later. Bye-bye.
Love you, Ma.
Love you too, baby.
Wow. Now that's dope right there, family. We got less than 4. We got about 5 minutes. I'm striving to work this out. I'm striving to multitask. I appreciate deeply every single person that has come through to the Wake Up Project. I greatly appreciate you, family. I can't even begin to tell you how much or show you how much. I think that I'll show you how much by striving to do my best to continue to keep this podcast going. Facebook won't allow me to answer each and every one of your comments. And also, sometimes I get caught up in the spirit and I just go. I speak from the heart. I don't speak in a practice. I never took a speaking course, but I just speak from the heart. I study, I learn, I feel passionately about what we're talking about tonight, and I speak from that passion. You know, so I didn't see some of the things that you said, but my sister Nura Allah asked, how do we defeat the ghost of Willie Lynch? That just caught my attention. How we defeat the ghost of Willie Lynch is we got to start with the lowest common denominator. The lowest common denominator is you and me striving to take ownership over our lives first as individuals. You can't love anyone else until you first learn how to love yourself. So first and foremost, we have to take responsibility over our own lives. Let's not continue to sit on the sidelines waiting for those who are running and manipulating the system to have a change of heart. And so, you know, a lot of us, you know, we wanted Hillary over Trump because a lot of us was hoping that Hillary would be Obama, you know what I mean, 2.0. But that's still not good enough. We got to stop waiting and hoping for benevolent outsiders to come in, no matter what they look like, to change our experiences. We have to be the change. That man, that woman in the mirror, you got to take ownership over your life. You have to begin to wean yourself off of self-defeating, self-destructive habits and behaviors. If you want your health to improve, stop doing the things that's destroying your health. Stop eating the foods, stop smoking, stop drinking, stop the things that are helping you to destroy your life. If you want to improve your thought processes, turn Ratchet TV off, man. If you want to begin to have a more healthy, peaceful, and serene emotional disposition so that you can build better relationships with your family, with your neighbors, then you have to begin to do the things that's necessary that will give birth to pride and confidence, to where you begin to walk your life out through the faith in the truth. If I commit myself to the principles and standards of life, it doesn't matter what's going on around me as much as it matters how I'm choosing to live my life. That's how we begin to defeat the ghost of Willie Lynch. We start practicing a practical love in our lives of healing, of regeneration in our lives. We fall in love with life again, the way it used to be. We know we have the power. We know we have a connection to the Most High. We know we have access to the truth that will empower us to make the right decisions in our life. The only thing from then on out that will keep you stuck to Willie Lynch is fear and procrastination, family. Fear of what other people will think. And a lot of us, a lot of times, we allow ourselves to stay stuck in unproductive relationships and affiliations because we're too afraid to be different. But that's where you start if you want to begin to defeat the ghost of Willie Lynch and the harm that it has visited upon us as individuals and as a collective. So that's going to be our show for tonight, family. I appreciate again deeply each and every one of you who've come through to be on the live feed, and for those of you who called. And until we meet again, family, I'm going to ask you to begin to commit yourself to rebuilding a relationship of love and truth in your own life. The truth. Don't follow any man. Follow the truth. Don't follow any woman. Follow the truth. The truth will never lead you wrong. And you have the power to begin to attract and build a relationship of truth as a human being, as a child of the Most High, and to begin to change and transform yourself in the midst of the chaos and be an example for other people who are looking for change themselves. So having said that, I say peace and elevation to the family, and I'm going to be going through the comments in the next hour or two, man. And let's keep on pushing. Let's keep on striving. I love you, family.
In the Mix Radio. In the Mix Radio. Streaming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So whenever you turn it on, it's on.